fabulous people. I know ordering food at an Italian restaurant can be very stressful, especially if you don't speak the language. Do I need to leave a tip? Will they understand my broken Italian? Do they speak English? How do I avoid tourist traps? These are some of the questions that I get asked all the time. And so in this video, I will share with you 10 things you should know before ordering at an Italian restaurant. And by the end of this video, I will share with you words and phrases that will make your life so much easier when ordering at an Italian restaurant. Now, before we begin, please remember to smack that like button. And if you're new to my channel and my vibe, and the vibe of this channel resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe. All right, fabulous people, andiamo. All right, fabulous, please join me for breakfast. And the first thing that you should know is that a little bit of Italian will go a long way in Italy. Italians will greatly appreciate if you just attempt to use a few words or phrases, and a lot of times they will actually compliment you on your Italian. Of course, they don't expect for you to speak Italian perfectly, but saying buongiorno when you walk into an Italian restaurant in the afternoon or buonasera for the evening will definitely make most Italians to be extra attentive to you. And of course, they don't expect for you to speak Italian the entire time. They will switch to English almost right away. Now, once you're seated at a table, a waiter normally will ask if you prefer a menu in English or Italian. Sometimes they do offer menus in other languages like French or German, or sometimes they will have a menu with English and Italian on the same page, and that is pretty much the standard now in all Italian restaurants. You will either get an option in which language you prefer a menu, or the menu will be in 2 languages, sometimes even 3. Now, please keep in mind that if you go to tourist traps restaurants, which are mainly located around popular sites, for example, in Rome, it's near the Colosseum, Vatican Museums, Pantheon, you will be given a menu in English, but the prices on that menu will be higher. Yes, it is unfair. Yes, it is illegal, but unfortunately it happens all the time. And that is why every time I do a video on Italy travel tips, I always urge everyone to avoid eating in tourist traps. And of course, you might ask me, Anastasia, how do I avoid eating at tourist traps in Italy? Well, first, I do recommend for you to go further away from popular sites on smaller streets. 2 is make sure to avoid restaurants where a waiter is standing outside and calling you in. Number 3, make sure you do a thorough research on where to eat in Rome or where to eat in Florence, Milan, Venice, etc. Please remember that just because a place has a lot of reviews on TripAdvisor, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good place. So you will have to do tons of research to prepare in advance. Another way is to go through a local travel agent. And the reason why I say local is because you want to work with a travel agent who actually lives in the country you are visiting, and not a travel agent who travels to, let's say, Italy once a year or does the same exact research that you would do online. And then have that travel agent organize everything for you: restaurants, accommodations, transportation, etc. Something that my travel agency in Italy has been doing for years for clients from all over the world. Trust me, you want a local expert who knows all the best local authentic spots and places. That will save you countless hours in the planning process and help you to avoid disappointment when you get to Italy. Now, another great thing that I recommend for you, if you plan on visiting smaller towns in Italy and you might walk into the restaurant and most likely they will have a menu only in Italian, then definitely download one of the translation apps. And I go into great details on some of the best translation apps in my video, must-have apps for traveling Italy. And of course, I will make sure to leave a link for you to that video in the description down below. Now, the next thing I absolutely have to mention is the fundamental difference between ordering in Italy and ordering in the US. If you plan on doing Italy travel, please do not expect the same level of service that you're used to back home. Please remember that waiters in Italy have a set salary and they're not really working for tips. And when they serve you, they do assume that you need privacy with the person or people you came to the restaurant with. So normally they will not be coming to your table to check on you, to make sure the food is okay, to ask if you want another glass of wine, etc. So if you need something from your waiter, just make an eye contact with them or raise your hand. And that is the best way to get a service at an Italian restaurant. Thank you. And just be prepared to wait longer than what you're used to. The service in Italy is generally slower, so just prepare yourself mentally for that and don't stress, because you're not going to make them move faster. They will just get frustrated with you. That's about it. There is a famous saying in Italy, chi va piano va sano e va lontano, which means whoever goes slowly goes safely and goes far. So just keep that in mind when you're ordering at a restaurant in Italy or doing anything in Italy. Now, if you're going to Italy for the first time, there is something very important that you must absolutely know. The restaurants in Italy are not open all day. They have a very strict opening hours. So it is very important that you time your sightseeing with restaurant opening hours. Otherwise, you might be left without lunch and you will have to settle for a sandwich, which is not that bad after all in Italy. But in case you're wondering what are the opening hours in Italy for the restaurants, it is usually from 12:30 p.m. to 2:30, 3 p.m. for lunch. And quick note here, guys, please make sure you do not show up at a restaurant at 2:50 p.m. asking them for lunch. You might not get the best service, or they might just refuse to serve you lunch, saying that the kitchen is already closed. And then the same goes for dinner hours. Most restaurants will open around 7 p.m. for dinner, and then they will stay open until 11 p.m., sometimes even 12 a.m. Now, please keep in mind that there are some restaurants that have continuous service throughout the day, but you have to do a thorough research to find them, because most of them, unfortunately, are tourist traps. Now, one quick travel tip for Italy that I have for you. If you didn't make a reservation in advance and you really want to try to get a table at that restaurant, then make sure to show up early. For example, most Italians have lunch around 1:30 p.m. So by showing up at a restaurant around 12 p.m., almost guarantees you will get a table and beat crowds. And the same goes for dinner. Most Italians have dinner around 8:30 p.m. So by showing up at a restaurant around 7 p.m. gives you a pretty good chance of grabbing a table. And one extra bonus you will get by arriving to the restaurant earlier is that the service might be faster, because the more crowds come in, the slower the service will get. Now, when you travel to Italy, you will quickly notice that we have many different food establishments here. We have bar, trattoria, osteria, ristorante, enoteca, and of course, it can get very confusing. What's the difference between all these places? So I'm going to clarify it for you very quickly. A bar is not a typical bar that you would think, be it in the US or Canada. A bar in Italy is actually a place where you go in the morning for espresso or cappuccino and a cornetto, and in the afternoon you can go there for a sandwich. Now, osterias used to be wine bars that now evolved into serving simple meals. Traditionally, they are simpler than trattorias, and they usually do not have a menu. Now, their offerings changes daily according, of course, to the market and the season, and you will typically find 2 to 3 dishes on the menu, if there is a menu. Most of the time there is not one, and usually those servings will be at a fixed price, including wine. Now, trattorias are a step above osterias. They're traditionally family-owned, casual, rustic neighborhood places that serve fresh local Italian dishes of the region they're located in Italy. So in Tuscany, you will have mainly Tuscan dishes, and Rome, Roman dishes, etc. Now, ristorante is a higher-end, full-service restaurant with professional staff, including a sommelier that is knowledgeable in food, wine, proper etiquette. You will get a professional kitchen staff and, of course, a wider variety of Italian dishes from different regions. One very important point that I need to make here is that just because you're going to a restaurant, please don't assume that the quality of the Italian food will be better there than, let's say, in osteria or trattoria. I can tell you from my personal experience, some of my best meals in Italy were in osterias and trattorias. Now, finally, enoteca. What is enoteca? Now, in the past, traditionally, enotecas were places where you just go for a glass of wine or two, and now they of course also transformed into a place where you can grab a glass of wine or two or a bottle, but at the same time you can enjoy some appetizers, and some of them even have a full menu. Finally, let's discuss one of the most heated topics: should you tip in Italy? Now, when you look at a menu at a restaurant, just so you know, the price that you see on the menu is a full price, meaning it includes taxes and tips. Now, let me tell you, fabulous people, waiters in Rome, Italy, and Italy in general love Americans because we assume that we should add a tip on top of that price. And unfortunately, sometimes, or it happens quite often actually, waiters even reinforce the fact that they should be tipped when they serve to American clients. And sometimes they do say that the tip is not included. Yes, it is included. Now, if you get an amazing service here in Italy, be it in trattoria, osteria, or ristorante, you are more than welcome to leave just a few euros, like all the Italians do, if your service was truly exceptional. That will be just as a thank you to your waiter for giving you extra care, extra attention, but it is not mandatory. Now, please keep in mind that if you do decide to pay with a credit card, which is most of us, have some euros on you to leave as a tip, because the machines here in Italy are not set up to add a tip on the card like they are in the US, because once again, the tip is included here in Italy. Now, one last thing for you to know: if you decide to pay with a credit card, they won't take it from you and then walk away. They will actually bring a machine directly to your table so you can pay at your table and be done. Finally, fabulous, like I promised, let me share with you some important words and phrases that will make your life so much easier when ordering at an Italian restaurant. Now, the first thing, as you walk into the restaurant, you should say either buongiorno, salve, or buonasera, depending on the time of the day. So once again, buongiorno, salve, buonasera. Now let's talk about how to order food in Italy. Of course, there are so many ways to do it, but the most simple one to say, I'll have something, be it a plate of pasta or bruschetta. By the way, fabulous people, it is not bruschetta, it is bruschetta. So the way to say it is io prendo. So if you want to get a pizza, you will say io prendo una pizza. If you want, let's say, a bruschetta, you will say io prendo una bruschetta. If this is going to be your first time in Italy, you might get a little bit overwhelmed when your waiter arrives and asks, what type of water would you like? In Italy, we do have different water types, and I'm going to clarify all of them for you very quickly. First, if you would like still water, you will say naturale, naturale. Now, if you would like sparkling water, you will say frizzante, frizzante. Now, here in Italy, we also have my favorite water type that I didn't know exists before I moved to Italy, which is leggermente frizzante, which is slightly sparkling or lightly sparkling. Again, leggermente frizzante. Trust me, fabulous people, it's going to be your favorite water type by the time you leave Italy. Another useful word is grazie, which is of course thank you. And I really like to travel around Italy just for the fact that in different regions in Italy, you will hear a slightly different variation of grazie, depending again on the accent of that particular region. But just make sure you're not saying gracias. We're not in Spain. It is quite different, grazie and gracias, all right? Next is for the time when you need to find restaurants. And the phrase that you should use is dov'è il bagno? Dov'è il bagno? Very simple. If you want to compliment a dish or wine, you say buono, which is good, or ottimo, which means excellent. So when your waiter arrives and asks you, how was your pizza, or how was your meal, or that particular wine that he recommended, you can say buono, or buonissimo, or ottimo. Once again, buono, buonissimo, ottimo. Now at the end of the meal, when you are ready for the bill, all you have to say is il conto per favore. Once again, il conto per favore. Of course, there are many different ways to ask for the bill, but in my opinion, it is one of the easiest ones. Finally, when you're going to be leaving the restaurant, make sure to say goodbye to everyone. And the best way to do it is just to say grazie, arrivederci. One more time, grazie, arrivederci. All right, fabulous people, thank you so much for watching this 10 things you should know before ordering in an Italian restaurant. Now, the next video that I recommend for you to watch is how to plan your first trip to Italy. And of course, if you plan on traveling to Italy and want to take all the pain out of research and organizing and booking process, then I welcome you to check out my travel agency, my Fabulous Vita travel agency that I will leave for you in the description down below. And before you go and start packing for Italy, please remember to smack that like button. And if you're new to my channel and my vibe and the vibe of this channel resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe. All right, fabulous. I truly hope to see you all in my next video.